and welcome to the Man Panel. I'm your host, Michelle Marchant Johnson, and I'm so excited that you're here with us for year 2 of this event that gives you insider information on what's going on in the hearts and minds of men. I'm so happy that you're here because the fact that you are here speaks volumes about you. This lets us know that you are dedicated to having a life and a love life that is amazing. So thank you for your presence and thank you for your participation. So I'm so excited to have with us today a first-time guest, and I know what he has to share is going to be incredibly valuable. So welcome to you, PJ Dixon. Welcome.
Thank you, love. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored to be able to speak with all the ladies that are listening.
Thank you so much for being here. I know that what we're going to talk about today is going to be incredibly valuable. So before we get started into our juicy topic today, PJ, I want to let the ladies know just a little bit more about you, for those that may not be as familiar with you and your wonderful work. PJ is a lifelong motivational speaker and an international life, love, and relationship coach. He is affectionately known as the Love Guru. After spending any time with him, you'll understand why. He lives his life with a single mission: love deeply and teach others to do the same. He is the creator of 2 different coaching programs on love and relationships, and despite PJ's disability, which was expected to take his life by age 7, he chose to live and to live well. I love that about you. I just think you're so inspiring.
Thank you.
PJ,
I have a good mom.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure that's one factor for sure. PJ has truly lived an extraordinary life: sailing, outdoor skydiving, indoor skydiving, trapezing, ziplining, hiking, mountain climbing, snow skiing, water skiing, aqua jet packing, and the list goes on. He's a former wheelchair athlete, international traveler, amateur watercolorist, founder of 2 nonprofit organizations and 4 disabled sports programs, a published author, 10th degree black belt, martial arts and women's self-defense instructor, and a meditation teacher. Additionally, PJ has been inducted into the National Hall of Fame for People with Disabilities and was nominated to carry the Olympic torch through Tucson in 2002. So wow, that's just quite an amazing little snapshot of you and your life, PJ, and we're really honored to have you with us.
Thank you. It's a real honor to be here too. It's funny what happens. I've done so many summits and podcasts over the past 2.5 years, and I'm also a professional speaker, and every time I hear my bio, it almost, like, I know I'm in a wheelchair so I can't do this, but it almost drops me to my knees in humility and gratitude for the life that I've been able to live. I'm very, very fortunate.
Wow. Wow. I love that perspective too, because I think that gratitude and humility and recognizing the gifts that are present in our lives, rather than focusing on what is not present or possible in our lives, is such a transformational practice. And I think you really embody that.
Thank you. And you know what? Here's the thing. It's also a muscle, right? If we think about, I had a conversation this morning with one of my clients, and she was like, but I don't know how to do whatever it was. And I said, well, did you know how to walk when you first started to walk? Did you know how to read when you first started to read? Did you know how to drive when you first started to drive? And she's like, no, of course not. And I was like, no, but what happens is you start to test your muscle. There's an intention, right? When you're a baby, for example, your arms are flopping around. When you're an infant, your arms are flopping around. But then there's an awareness that happens. This is really important. There's an awareness. And with the ladies that are listening, there's probably already an awareness that you're not happy with where you are. Something's not right in your life, right? So this baby's arms are flopping around. The baby becomes aware that my arms are flopping around. Then it starts to create connections where it goes, oh, when my arm flops around, I feel this. Well, that's interesting. And then it starts to initiate muscle. Well, that's intention. right? So the moment that you feel like something isn't good in your life, you go, oh, well, let me set some intention to do something different. That's why you're listening to this summit, right, to the man panel, because the moment that you do, you realize, okay, something isn't right, or I want something different. That's an awareness. So the intention is I want something different. What am I going to do? And then the doing becomes that muscle. That's where we have to strengthen. So babies practice with their muscles, right? They stand on their mom's lap or their dad's lap. They push with their little legs, and pretty soon they get good at that. The muscles work, and they know that they can initiate those. That's when they start to stand on their own, right? And then they let go, and then they have to get good at balance. It's all a process. But remember, none of us knew how to do this in the beginning. It's just a matter of developing that muscle, whatever the muscle is, whatever the need is in your life.
Yeah, and I think this is so relevant here, PJ, because I think so many of us, myself included, just think that we're going to know how to do successful relationship. Kind
Right.
of like we expect to be able to speak another language just through osmosis or something, right?
Right. Absolutely 100% correct. And it's just a process. It's a learning process. All communication with yourself or with somebody else is just learning. The difference is that there is reactionary processes and responsive processes, right? So if I'm reactionary, I always say reaction is a slave action and response is a choice, which means we're free. There's only two kinds of people in the world. There's free people, and there's slaves. And I just want to make sure it's on the same side that it started, right? If you're reactionary, reaction is a slave action. It means you don't think about it. It's just something that your brain responds to or reacts to really as quickly as it possibly can. And when it does, it's doing it usually in defense of yourself or your own safety, even if that's perceived danger, no real threat. And then there's a response where you drink everything in, you look at your options, your choices, and you make a decision. And that's the direction that you go. That's when you're free. In this space, there's freedom. And with relationships, there's freedom. We don't have to become angry. We can choose happiness, right? Or we can choose being right, or we can choose happiness, or we can choose resistance and frustration, right? It's all a choice, and choice sometimes is a muscle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow, that was just a beautifully phrased section there. And ladies, you may even want to go back and rewind that because there were so many little gems in how you said that.
Thank you.
And I think that as we go through our lives, and we're speaking specifically about women's love lives in this context, but as we go through our lives, we can kind of go on automatic pilot, and we can kind of be going through the motions and think we're kind of getting it right, but there are always like some little blind spots that are hard for us to see because we're too close to our own selves. And I always think about like looking in a mirror. We look in a mirror and we see our reflection and we think we see things clearly. We're not always seeing the side view or, heaven forbid, that rear view, right?
Yeah, that's true. And sometimes that's by choice. We know that we're probably being blind to certain things because we're not ready yet or courageous enough yet to face that, often because we simply don't know how to deal with that. So let me just wear the blinders for a little bit longer so I don't have to face that quite yet until I figure out how, right? A
Yeah.
lot of times the one thing that stops people from taking action is I just don't know how.
Yeah. So I know you have a lot of experience in speaking with women and helping women, and we have mainly single women here on this call, on this event. So what would you say, PJ, are some of the most common challenges that you see single women having? We might call them blind spots, we might call them challenges, we might call them reactions, whatever we want to call them. What are some of the most common challenges that you see?
You know, one of the biggest challenges right now is that women are, there's more and more women going to college for an education and less men. There's more women joining the workforce and less men. The last statistic I saw said something like 67% of the workforce was women, right? And so there's a discrepancy between where women are and where the men are, right? And so one of the biggest challenges is finding a good man. And so anytime I see a good man out there, I always compliment them. I thank them for being a good man. I always say the world needs more good men. And so that's one of the biggest challenges. And so often what women will do, especially professional women, for example, they will either stay single, right? not permanently single, but there's a word that I can't think of right now. They'll stay single for, you know, unfortunately long periods of time, or they'll find themselves in relationships that are subpar. They're not really getting what they want. They're okay, you know, but they're not really stimulated. They're not really in love, and they last maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but in the end, they just don't stay together. And they're not angry. They're not upset with the person. They were nice enough. It just didn't work. He just wasn't the right one, right? And so, and then the third is that they just, I forgot what it was. Oh my gosh. So really the big problems is that they're not finding men that are their equal. And so the problem is they're looking sometimes in the wrong places, right? If you're a corporate woman, looking online for a date might not be the most ideal place to look. But instead recognizing some things in areas that you're interested in, like tech, or medicine, or history, or culture in some way, art maybe, for example, and making sure that you're spending more time with those kinds of people. Because when you spend time with those kinds of people, more people get to know you, being very social, being very loving, being very kind. The more connected you are, the more networking you do, the more likely you are to meet somebody's friend or meet somebody's friend's friend, and you wind up finding the person that you're interested in. Okay, the opportunity for you to find somebody on your own is greatly diminished compared to if you start making a lot of friends and everybody seems to love you and really like you. And occasionally, you know, it comes up that you're not with anybody right now, but you're definitely interested, and, you know, it'd be wonderful to meet somebody. And not that you're asking them to look, but sometimes there's this just, right, I can't believe you're single. You're so amazing. Why are you single? And you're like, I don't know. I just haven't found the right guy yet. If you know somebody, I'd love to hear. Well, I do have this friend, right? You never know where you're going to meet somebody. So I make an effort to encourage all of my clients to treat absolutely every person with as much kindness and love as you possibly can. And I don't care if they're a 4-year-old little boy or an 89-year-old grandpa or grandmother. The sweeter you are to everybody, or just that, you know, the grocery store clerk, the sweeter and kinder you are to everybody, the more people get to know you, the more people like you, the more the law of reciprocity kicks in. The law of reciprocity is they want to give back. And when they realize that you're single, they might introduce you to the right kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think you've hit on a couple of really key things here. One is you're acknowledging, PJ, that for a lot of women, it might feel like it's very frustrating to try to meet a high quality man.
Yeah.
And I guess people might have different definitions of what that high quality man might be.
For each person, right? Each person, you get to decide, I get to decide, she gets to decide. It depends on what you're looking for, what you're comfortable with, what do you like, what
Right.
nurtures you.
Right. You're also acknowledging that for college educated women that are successful in their careers or their jobs or have a lot going for them, they might find it frustrating to find a man that they consider to be kind of on equal ground. We're kind of acknowledging this. And I think this is actually honoring to the women here to acknowledge it, even though it might sound a little discouraging, because what we're really saying is there are those kind of men, those high quality men out there, whatever your definition of that is, but it might require a little different approach than the kind of beat your head against the wall things that you feel like you've been trying for a very long time. Would you say true?
Absolutely. And not only that, here's the additional piece. It's part of it is about honoring who you are. Instead of bringing yourself down, why don't we lift your standards of where you're looking, right? Like I brought a lady on yesterday as a new client yesterday because I was able to speak with her in a powerful way, and she liked that. Everybody that she's worked with up to this point, including her current coach, everybody has been talking to her, and she was born and bred in New York, and, you know, grew up in the city and had to defend herself, and, you know, always hung out with the boys and a bit of a tomboy. And so everybody's saying, you need to drop into your feminine, you need to drop into your feminine. And I don't disagree. That would help her for sure. But it would help her have more interest, but also some of that interest might be a little bit lower than where she is right now and what she's looking for. And so what I encouraged her to do is, well, let's identify the kind of man that you're interested in. When we identify the kind of man you're interested in, let's find out where he hangs out. What kind of places do they hang out with? What are their friends like? What kind of activities do they do? And how can you get associated with those kinds of things? So now what you're doing is you're honoring your own integrity, and you're elevating the bar for yourself. And when you elevate the bar for yourself, you're moving yourself into those positions where you might meet people of that category and that quality, right? And so this is a great way to do it. Honor your own integrity. Find out who you are and what's important to you. It's not wrong to increase your level of femininity, but it's also not wrong to say, you know what? I'm looking for a man who actually can deal with my power and my strength. And when I find that kind of man, when I know that he's strong and he's the leader and he's confident and he's running things, and when he talks, people listen, and not that he has to be a world leader, not that he has to be the president, but that he is actually like confident and powerful and people like him and he has charisma and it's genuine. And when you're with him, you feel safe. And when you feel safe, what will naturally happen is you will soften. And when you soften, your femininity will start to naturally exude and naturally come into play within that relationship. Because as strong as he is, then you get to be that opposite. You get to become softer, and it's really beautiful for you. So you don't have to change if it feels wrong, but rather if it feels more right to find a man who's stronger, then let's look up instead of looking down. And I'm not suggesting by any means that masculine is up and feminine is down, right? What I'm suggesting is let's look at the level and the quality and the class and the character and the charisma and the personality and the interests that are up here. So you can go, oh, let me rise up and become who I want to be so that I can find a man who really appreciates who I am, right? Did that make sense, or was that convoluted?
Yeah, no, I thought that really made sense. Okay. And I really appreciate the underlying message here, because so many women are asking, well, do I need to lower my standards, or am I being unrealistic? You know, we hear this all the time, right?
All the time.
And what you're saying is, no, it might even be that you're raising your standards. And I also have shared that message, that I actually think for most women, the bigger fear in my heart is that they'll consider lowering their standards and settling for something that they're not going to be happy with. And so that's not the answer. But I also like that you're honoring the fact that women can consider creating new possibilities by looking at this a little different way. In other words, I think there's so many women that are wanting to date, that have online dating as like the end all be all, the only way that they're really looking. And in the rest of their life, they're just kind of in a routine or going through the motions of their life. Even if they have a great life, going the same places, doing the same things, pretty much in a pattern, because we as humans become creatures of habit. And what you're suggesting is, let's really identify the kind of man that you're really looking for, what his interests might be, where he might be inclined to go, what things might he participate in after hours of work or job or career or whatever he's doing, and consider creating that opportunity to interact with people in those spheres.
And identify, when you've identified the kind of man that you're looking for, I also have my clients identify what characteristics and qualities you think he's going to be looking for in a woman. And then identify, do you have those, right? If they're weak or you don't feel like you have those, are they things that you would like to develop? I'm not asking you to change. I'm asking you to look at yourself and go, you know what? I would actually like to have that characteristic or quality. Great. Then it's a transformation. It's a choice. It's a growth process for you. If you're like, oh, I have to change to meet the quality of man, not necessarily, but you want to identify if these are things that are interesting to him, what are going to be interesting to you, right? You've already assessed that. And if these certain characteristics are interesting to you, might it be okay for you to also then flip the tables and go, oh, how would I want to show up for him, right? Because I want him to show up this way for me. And if he shows up this way for me, how do I then want to show up for him, right? And even if he doesn't show up this way for me, how still do I want to show up for him and maintain my integrity, my level of class, my level of quality? And hold on one sec. There's one more piece. If I think of it, I'll come back to it. It's on the tip of my tongue right now. Um, it is about, I can't remember, but it'll come back to me in just a minute. And when it does, I'll jump in and share it with you. Okay. I know what it is. Oh, good. Thank you for pausing long enough to let me figure it out. So the other piece is like, as we're asking women to like maybe raise their standards, I'm asking them to raise their standards for themselves, to recognize and identify the value that they really have, who they really are, their real worth to other people, what they really do want to bring to the relationship and will bring to a healthy relationship. Identify the truth, like who are you, what will you and do you want to bring to a healthy, happy relationship. That's the truth of who you are. And as you raise your standards, don't lower your standards, hold them into the standards that you have. And if they like you, any man that likes you will see your standards and he will want to get better to meet those standards so he can win your approval. When you lower your standards, then they know, oh, well, that's cool. I don't have to do as much because she lowers her standards just to keep me. So I don't have to work so hard to keep you. No, he needs to earn you. Women are incredibly valuable. Aside from children, they're the most valuable component that we have as human beings. We need femininity. We need masculinity too. They're both important. They're complements of each other. But the feminine, His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, Western women would save the world. What he's saying is they're both strong and feminine, right? They're confident and soft. They can lead, but they can also follow. Women have a remarkable ability to change the world. The touch of a woman softens a man. Men are deeply attracted to femininity. Some men like a little bit stronger woman, right? But there's also that sense of feminine that draws a man in. That doesn't mean that if you're a little bit stronger that you have to give that up completely, but are there spaces where you can also be feminine? Can we create that pliability, that flexibility, that softness?
Yeah, and I'd like to have a little deeper conversation around this too, PJ, because I know it's kind of a buzz topic out there, you know, the masculine and feminine and the dance between the masculine and the feminine. And I think a lot of women kind of struggle with this conceptually and knowing how to manifest it. I mean, if a woman's out there and she's just, you know, kicking butt and taking names, so to speak, in her job or her career, she may not quite understand or know how to shift that. That's working for her well, perhaps on the professional side. She may not know how to shift gears or how to really enjoy or express her femininity. I just think it's a buzz topic, but I still think as much as it's talked about out there, it's still kind of confusing for a lot of women. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, I think there's a lot of different directions we can go down. So let me start with this. Ladies, I often say, seek not to love more, but to remove the obstacles separating you from love. Let me say it again. Seek not to love more, but to remove the obstacles separating you from love. Okay, it's the same. You don't have to seek to make an effort to try to become or create more femininity, right? But instead identify, well, what is it that I can let go of? What is it that I'm holding fast to? What is it that I am afraid to release, right? And when you let go of that, what happens is your natural character comes out. When your natural character comes out, that's one of the things that's attractive to another human being, is they can trust you wholly and completely because they can feel, they can sense that you're not putting on a show. You don't have this tough, hard demeanor, but there's a softness underneath that I don't get a taste of, that I don't get to touch, that I don't get to be nurtured by or enveloped into, right? And so when you start to let go of the rough veneer or the tough side or the masculine expression or the feeling that I have to do everything and complete everything, all of a sudden when you come into the state, you start to soften. When you start to soften, it's like you can breathe again. And this ability to breathe again then allows you to be open and receptive because there's space. That means your need to control starts to slip away and you create space for someone else's ideas, someone else's leading, someone else's encouragement, someone else's creativity. And you can just, much like the sail on a sailboat, you can just rest and relax. And when their wisdom, their ideas, their encouragement, their leadership comes into you It's like the wind, and it fills that sail, and together you move forward. And it's really beautiful. Which leads me to another thing, and I don't know why I'm going to say this, but somebody out there might need to hear it. Um, One of the most beautiful ways for a woman to communicate with a man is walking with him. Go for a walk with a guy you like. If there's a gentleman you like, he's much more likely to connect with you if you are moving with him. Okay. And what I'm suggesting is if, first of all, just quickly, if we turn and face each other, this turns a man on, not sexually, but it turns him on to want to fight, right? So when you stand side by side with a man, that's how men relate to each other. And that's when we're a little bit more open. And if you're walking with him and doing something that's called pacing, when he steps with his left foot, you step with your left foot. When he steps with his right foot, you step with your right foot, and left and right and left and right. And you move at the same speed. What's happening is psychologically, you're starting to align, right? Emotionally and spiritually, you're starting to align. Physically, you're moving together. Psychologically, you have a goal and a direction to get one place and turn around and come back. Emotionally, you're aligned because you're moving at the same speed as him. And so when this rhythm starts to happen, all of a sudden you soften. And so emotionally and spiritually, there's this softening, and there's not a separation between you and I. There's a unity and a oneness, right? And that leads me to my definition of love. Love is the willing exchange of oneself for oneness, the willing exchange of oneself, thinking about me and I and ego and self, right, for oneness. If you've ever been in love, even with a little tiny child, right, or a little old lady that you see on the bus or wherever you are, right, if you've ever been touched by love and you just sit there and relish in that love while you're looking at this person or thinking about this person, and not in that love that I need, I want, but where it's just pure love and expression outwards, right? When you're in that state, you realize that there's no separation. There is only love. There's only oneness. There's only creation of connection, right? And that's what's beautiful. And so, um, don't feel like all the conversations have to be forced. If you're on a date and you like a guy and you're like, I like this guy, but I feel like the conversation is starting to come to an end and I'm not ready for it to end, suggest that you get up and go for a walk. Suggest that you go to another place. Hey, you know what? Let's go get coffee over at this place. Or, hey, you know what? Let's take a walk around the boardwalk. Or, hey, let's go over to this park for a little while. They've got an amazing pond with all these funny ducks. Let's go feed the ducks. What do you think? You want to? And then what happens is when you change your scenery, you change your psychology. When you change your psychology, you change your emotions. When you change your emotions, you change the things that you want to talk about, or you change your psychology, you change the things you want to talk about, you change your emotions. It all works together. Change creates more stimulus creates more things that you want to talk about.
Very, very fascinating. Yeah. Yeah. So as far as men go, do you have any ideas for women about how a woman can inspire or help bring out the best in a man? Because I have this theory, and I want to hear what you have to say about it. I have this theory that many times women don't recognize the power. I'm not talking about power like control over someone, but I'm talking about the
influence. Yes.
The influence that a woman can have to bring out really the best in a man. Yes. I mean, I know my husband well enough after being married now for about 11 years. I know exactly what I can do that would bring out the best and the worst in him. Well, of course, I want to choose to bring out the best because that's a lot more fun for both of us. But generally speaking, I think women don't always recognize that the power of that influence that they can have to bring out the best in a man.
Absolutely. So I don't know what your philosophy is, but I would probably bring in 2 or 3 concepts. Number one is this idea that a man really needs a cheerleader. He needs to know that you're on his side, that you love him no matter what, that you're loyal no matter what. And when you feed into him your belief in him, he starts to believe in himself, and he gets stronger and is inspired to believe that you're not going to leave him if he doesn't succeed. Now, that doesn't mean that you're choosing somebody who fails all the time, but that you're choosing somebody to inspire him to actually take the action. babe, I know you can do it. I believe in you. Don't be afraid, right? Can I help you get it started? No, 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 no. I'm good. I'm good. Okay, well, I know you can do it. I believe in you. And kiss him, touch him, walk away. Because as long as you stay there and you allow a man to engage in conversation about all the struggle and suffering, he'll get wrapped up in his head. But if you say, I believe in you, I know you can do it, and you touch his face or touch his chest and look him in the eyes, and you give him a kiss on the cheek, on the lips, on the forehead, wherever it is, right? You hug him and just let him know that you believe in him and walk away, you know, he will, he'll, he may ruminate for a little while over what's going on and all the difficulties, but he'll very likely begin to take action. And that's one of the best ways for a woman to inspire a man. Another way is for her to go to him and ask, babe, do you have some ideas? Can you help me figure this problem out? Not just go and say, you know, I would need to talk and just talk it all out, but sometimes like invite his wisdom, invite his knowledge, invite his ability to protect and provide for you, because that's what we want to do. We want to protect and provide. And so when you do that, all of a sudden he feels like he has value. He feels like he has worth. His chest pumps up. He lifts his chin a little bit higher. He walks a little more confidently. He feels safe and trusts you. If he knows that you believe in him, if he knows that you have faith in his wisdom and knowledge and that you turn to him, it makes him feel stronger and more committed to you and like he has value for you, right? And that's all men want. Men desperately want to feel like they have value for you because it comes down to biology. If we don't have value for you, somebody might come along and steal you, right? It's often called mate poaching, right? And so we're constantly like trying to protect what's ours. Sorry, I don't mean it to sound like its own, but there's a strange idea within a man's mind that we are protecting the perimeter around you because you're ours. And if the more you come to us and you're in your feminine and your softness and you believe in us and you're our cheerleader, and we truly believe that you're loyal to us and that soft feminine nature softens all the rough edges that we have, and we can just relax and we know that nobody else in the world makes us feel this way, then we will do anything for you. And we start to trust and believe that you actually want to stay with us. And if we trust and believe that you want to stay with us, we will do anything and everything we can to protect you and to keep you, right? Now, obviously, there are some extenuating circumstances, but that's a bigger, longer conversation that makes more sense to have on an individual basis. Mm-hmm. Right? Men need to, so it comes down to one thing. Sorry, I get so excited. So I didn't mean to step on your tongue, as I say, meaning interrupt you. Men desperately want to be strong. Men desperately want to be powerful. Men desperately want to protect you. Men desperately want to provide for you. Because if we can protect you and provide for you and you like us, then we get to keep you. And we want that. We want to keep you in our lives. You are that softness. You are that grace. You are our connection to our senses. You are the sensual side that we are not. We don't taste food, we gulp. We don't smell flowers until you say, did you smell it? And we're like, smell what? Right? We don't hear the laughter of children because we're wrapped up in our mind thinking about what we can do and manipulate and change and fix in the world, right? We need you. We don't know what things feel like unless you're like, babe, feel this. Isn't this soft? And he's like, oh my God, yeah, that is really soft. We wouldn't feel soft unless you told us to feel soft. I'm generalizing. I'm very much generalizing. I'm stereotyping. But ladies, you are our connection to sensuality. And that's why when you are in your sensual, and again, it doesn't necessarily mean you're sexual, but sensuality can be both sexual and non-sexual. When you are in your sensual, we marvel at you. We're fascinated by you. And when you bring us into your world, you expand our world. Why in the world would we ever want to lose you? You're the best thing that we've got going. We desperately want you. And the men that are players out there, they haven't been touched by that sensuality. They have only been allowed to have sex with women and get one aspect of their needs, for lack of a better word, met. And that's false for them also. There's so much more to life that women bring. The fact that you smell good. When you smell good, immediately that's our senses. We're like, oh, wow, you smell amazing. Unfortunately, some men sometimes forget, right? So you can squirt it on your neck, and then you can come up and maybe kiss him on the cheek or something like that. So he now associates that smell with connection and contact and love. And so when you smell good, he's all of a sudden attentive, right? Because you've linked it, you've anchored it with some kind of physical touch. Men, most men, maybe not all men, but most men really like physical contact. We love it, especially from a woman, because it's soft and it softens us and allows our muscles to relax. So we're not so tense and so heavy all the time. Psychologically heavy, emotionally heavy, physically dense because we're, always tightening our muscles.
Mm.
Is this making some sense? Did I answer your question? Did I give?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
beautiful. I was really moved by your passion as you shared that. I was really moved. I not only heard that, but I felt that. And I know that the women out there listening feel that too. I felt that passion, and we really appreciate the way that you're sharing so generously from your heart.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love love. And I went through a phase. I went through a phase. I went through a phase in my life when I'm kind of a big nerd sometimes too. So I went through this phase for about a year and a half, a couple years, maybe as much as 3 years periodically, where I could tell you what I had for dinner. And I would feel like I was lying to you, even though I was 100% honest. And I really struggled with this for like 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And I finally realized, oh my gosh, I understand why I feel like I'm lying. I feel like I'm lying because I'm coming from my head. I'm not coming from my heart. And so over that year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, I realized that the more I came from my heart, the more I felt like I was always telling the truth. So that's why sometimes even in this interview, I'm like, okay, hold on a sec. Let me get quiet. And I just make an effort to align and come back to my heart, come back to spirit, feel it, see it, smell it, know it, whatever. And then all of a sudden I'll speak from that place, because that's where my truth comes from. I've been named 4 times in my life, and every single one of my names means love. My earliest memory is about love. One of my earliest memories as a child was talking about God to 2 of my 4-year-old friends when I was 5 years old. And I wasn't raised in the church or the temple or the mosque or the synagogue. It's just how I'm created. It's just how I'm built. I'm fortunate enough to be connected to my heart. Fortunate enough. So thank you for that. I'm honored by your comment. Thank you for letting me touch you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your authenticity, and I think it's a good reminder for all of us of the importance of authenticity in creating that deep kind of connection.
Yeah. And that's why when people say, you just need to change, you just need to soften, you just need to accept something lower, and you get frustrated, that frustration is a sign from God, from the heavens, from the internal creator that's in you, right? And I'm not trying to be religious, because I'm not particularly religious, but I'm very, very devoutly spiritual, because I feel like that's the way I communicate a little bit better. But I also speak the language of religions. When you are feeling like something isn't right, something's out of whack, out of alignment, oh, I don't know, I don't really want to do that, it's not right. Don't do that. That's coming from a place of scarcity. There's not scarcity in the universe. There's only pure abundance. And I can say that, and people are like, yeah, well, if there's so much abundance, why aren't there so many good men out there? There are really good men out there. Have you put yourself in a place aligned with your own integrity, aligned with that own authenticity? Have you been honest with yourself about what not only you're looking for, but who you are? Are you showing up? Are you putting yourself out there? Are you recognizing what it is that they want? And if they would show up, if that ideal man would show up, who would you be? And are you waiting for him to show up to become that? If you are, you're missing the point. You're supposed to be that person now. When you be that person, then he will come into your life, because you create space. If you're like, oh, I'll be that person when he comes into my life, then there's no space for him to enter you, for him to enter that space, that sacredness with you. It's very metaphorically sexual, right? The woman relaxes and softens and opens up so the man can enter her. And as long as she's tight, and I'm not trying to be risque, but as long as she is resistant, the muscles around her vagina will be tight, her legs will be tight, right? And she'll resist. If she resists, there's no space for him to enter freely. When she wants to be with him, which I imagine all the women listening to the man panel are looking for, a man, or maybe possibly a man that's more aligned with who you really are and what you really want. When you find that, you will soften. But what if you soften first, so that there is space for a man to enter your life? instead of him having to knock on the door to say, hey, can I come in? What if you softened and invited him in, right? There's a real beauty there. And I'm making a bit of a metaphor, but the truth is when we create space, then all of a sudden there's space for something there's something, when we create space, that space allows for opportunity of movement. When there's no space, it makes it difficult for movement to occur, and you wind up staying in the same state that you've been in for a while, which often feels stuck.
That was beautiful. Thank you very much, PJ. And this conversation, I know we could talk for hours, you and I, because I feel so aligned with you, and I really love what you've shared today. And I know that it'll be so beneficial for so many women out there. And so tell us a little bit more about how the ladies can stay in touch with you, get more from you. We'll have a link to your free gift right underneath this audio video that you're watching from, ladies. But PJ, tell us a little bit more about what you're offering.
Ladies, if you really truly are looking to find that ideal man, then I have free 4 videos for you, okay? They're pretty lengthy. The free 4 videos are riddled with juicy, delicious information, and it's about an hour's worth of content, which it's a little more than an hour's worth of content, which is pretty cool. I feel like I squeeze so much information, and I'm not supposed to tell you this. Everybody's like, don't say that, but the truth is they're a couple years old, so the quality is but the content is still juicy and delicious. I would rather be open and honest with you. I'm not happy with the content or the quality now, but I'm absolutely 100% happy with the content. So go and watch those videos. And when you watch those videos, it's on my website called engagedin1year.com, engagedin1, O-N-E, year.com. And when you watch those videos, if after you watch those videos, you're like, I really want to talk to PJ, you can certainly click on the link that says, hey, how can I talk to you? And set up a one-on-one call with me called Discovering True Love Conversation. Okay?
That's great. Thank you so much, PJ. And ladies, be sure to click on the link right below the video or audio that you're watching or listening from. PJ's gift will be available throughout the rest of the event, but I know you're not going to want to miss out because we've just barely touched the tip of the iceberg here of what PJ has to share. So PJ, before we wrap up for today, do you want to leave us with just a little last parting thought?
Yes, absolutely. May I align and see what wants to come out?
Sure.
Okay, give me 1 sec. Love is an option and a choice. Don't wait for it to come to you, but instead share it with the world. And the more you share that love with the world, the more it will come back to you. Love is a verb, it's an action. Share it outwardly. Don't expect it to come to you. Share it freely and willingly, and then be open and receptive to it coming back.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I've been really moved by our conversation today, and I really want to thank you for your wisdom and sharing and generosity. And ladies, I hope you will also join us for more of the Man Panel. And also make sure you get PJ's free gift. And also scroll down on the page and check out the VIP package, which includes the audio and video of all of the interviews, plus some incredible juicy bonuses, because I know you're going to want to listen to these more than once. So pick them up for your personal library, and we'll see you for more of the Man Panel. Bye-bye for now.